These are the parts that we're going to be using to lower the truck. I pretty much bought all these parts from different companies. Let's start with the control arms. The control arms I bought from DJM Suspension. These are the lowers. Those are the upper control arms. And I also got some front shocks from them. And then I also got lowering springs from them. These are 2-inch lowering springs. And then everything else I got from other companies. The C-notches I got from Western Chassis. It's a 2-piece C-notch. As you can see there, this is just for added stability, added strength and whatnot. And then those are also, they call these, they're super C-notches because they have a huge C-notch and they give a lot more travel than your ordinary C-notch. And then we got here, this is the 6-inch flip kit. I got this from TW Suspension. They list on eBay, I believe. It uses really quality steel. It's nice and freaking thick. Look at that. And then I also got these little, these are the shock relocators for the rear. Actually, I should say shock extenders. But these are from a different company. These are from, I can't remember, SR Moto or something like that. They list on eBay. But yeah, these, I ended up painting them orange myself. They came just as a raw metal. So I ended up painting them orange. And then I also ordered these. These are Beltex Nitro Drop 2 shocks for the rear. And then with just this right here, I should be able to accomplish a 4-inch drop in the front and a 6 to a 7-inch drop in the back. The reason why I say 6 to 7 because with what you see here, this is a 4-6 drop kit, but I might go 7 inches because I already have a drop shackle on the truck right now, which lowered the truck 2 inches. So I don't know if that would mean I can make it go to a 7-inch drop. I mean an 8-inch drop, being that it already has the drop shackle. But I actually probably don't want it 8 inches dropped. I just probably just stick with the 6 inches. I might just take that drop shackle off or adjust the drop shackle to its different spot. But anyways, here's all the parts. Let's get started. Looky. So for the rear flip kit, I ended up using this blue jack. That way I can raise and lower the rear end while I'm messing with the leaf springs and everything. And then the bricks, where I was using the bricks for the pinion angle, because when you take the leaf springs down, the whole rear end drops and then everything gets all screwed up. So I had to put bricks under right here under the drive shaft right here, and then I kind of lifted up the drive shaft where I wanted it, put the bricks, and then it made the drive line nice and straight, because without the bricks the drive line was kind of like going down, and then the whole rear end was facing downwards, and you know that's not good when you're trying to align these. So just put bricks, it'll raise this side back up, it'll straighten out the rear end, and then you can go ahead and put all these on. This is how this flip kit goes. It's got a bottom plate, and then the U-bolt, and then the little piece that goes inside right here. Kind of hugs the axle a little bit. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it for the flip kit. Also for now, I have it set to the higher setting on the drop shackle. So that way when I put it back on the ground, if it seems like it's not low enough, we'll switch this to this hole, and that'll make it an inch lower. But for now, I'm just going to start out on this one, and then we'll see what it looks like. Alright guys, so one thing that nobody talks about that I need to address, because this can be a potential major problem down the road. They say that when you put the flip kit on, and then also with the drop shackles, you're going to get about a 7-inch drop. Now they say also, obviously we got to notch the frame, but they also say you got to notch under the bed, the rail that goes right over the rear end, because they say the rear end, if you bottom out, it'll hit the bed. Now look what's on top of the rear end. On the very top of the rear end is a freaking brake line. So if this hits the bed, your brake line, this thing's gonna just snap off and you're gonna lose your brakes in the rear. So I need to figure out what the hell I'm gonna do with it. It's obviously mounted to the rear end from right here. This side is just a breather hose, but this is what I'm concerned about, because this is the first thing that's gonna hit the bed when it bottoms out. And this is a hard line. Now I could probably just take this bolt off and, I don't know man, ever so gently try to bend this down to where it's lower than the top of the pumpkin, I guess, as they call it. But I don't know, I don't have any experience in bending brake lines, so I don't know if I just grab this and push it down, if it's just going to snap it, or do I need to heat it up? I have no idea. But before anybody comments on this video will already be posted, and I'll probably already have this done. But yeah, I gotta figure out what the hell I'm gonna do, because I really don't want to put this together and then have the rear end hit the bed and snap this brake line off. So let me figure out what I'm gonna do. Alright, so what I ended up doing, I put this bolt back in. That was for this bracket here, but we don't need that. And then I also put this bolt back in. That was for the bracket that was holding this. It looks like this. And then this air line that was up here above this too, I just zip tied it to this emergency brake line, so now that's under also. And then this right here was actually fairly easy to bend. I just kind of moved it over this way and pushed down, and now it sits lower than the top of this, as you can see there. So now if it ever does hit the bed, the first thing that's going to hit is this, and this should stay untouched, and hopefully it won't break. But yeah, I probably should attach this to something, because it is slightly loose now, but I'm just very happy that it's under this now. As you can see, it's yeah, it's like a little bit under it. So I ended up making a template out of cardboard, and then I traced my line around it. Now I know where I need to cut. You got to get it, as perfect as you can lined up with the axle, because that square piece on the axle has got to fit perfect on this when it has full suspension lock. When it bottoms out, there's not much room, as you can see. So I hope I got it lined up correctly. I think I do. But yeah, there's different ways of doing it. You can attach a string and use I forgot what it's called, the thing that hangs there, and try to get the center point. You can use a jack under there, under the rear end, try to put it up as close as you can to the frame so you can know where it's gonna the axle's gonna go up into the frame. I got mine up as far as this jack will allow it to go. Probably could have got it a little higher with a better jack. Yeah, so I'm getting ready to cut this out. I got both sides already marked up, ready to cut. So let's go ahead and get the grinder, angle grinder. We'll put a cutoff wheel on it, and then I'll try to cut that out. Now before you cut it though, you want to support both sides of this rear frame. So I got this side supported with these jacks, and then I'm going to use these jacks here to support this side of the frame. That way, once I cut this out, you know, you don't get the frame bending. Hopefully it'll stay true where it is, you know. I'm still, the front end still being held up by those jacks. So let me get these jacks set up and then start cutting. I'm also covering the gas filler tube and the top of the gas tank and everything, just for, you know, safety reasons. You can never do too much for safety, because I did smell vapors coming out of there earlier, and there are going to be sparks present, so who knows, you never know. So just cover it. I suggest cover your gas tank and everything with a thick blanket, but I just have a thin like a landscaping cloth for under grass, but yeah, I'm just going to use that. And then I also got these little arm protectors from my old job. It's supposed to protect against cuts and shit like that, but you never know. Anyways, so I'm just going to start cutting right now. Just let you know, just try to be safe. Hey, how's it going? Thanks for the dog bed and the eggs. We were gone for the weekend and we came back.
I know. I got nervous because I dropped them off on Friday, I think, and so they sat on the front porch all weekend. And oh shit!
Think they'll be all right?
Well, I talked to my daughter about it. She said, "Yeah, we do fine. Usually, it's cool."
Yeah, I don't think we didn't use those ones yet. We were still getting rid of our other ones.
If you put them in water and they float, that's bad.
That's bad if they float? Okay, yeah. We'll check that then, because we haven't ate them yet, because we were thinking the same thing. We were wondering if we should or not.
Well, yeah, I got concerned about that. But what are you doing here? Are you putting on new wheels?
Or
are you turning it into a flatbed?
I'm doing a whole suspension upgrade. New shocks front and rear.
Alright. So what are you
I
cutting
changed
off?
the leaf springs used to go over the rear. So I got the notches put on, but they're not bolted in yet. But one complaint I have about them is I feel like maybe they could have been made a little better, because if you see, it fits really good up top. It's nice and snug to the frame, but on the bottom there's almost a 1/4 inch gap. See that? That's not good, because there's 2 holes on the bottom. You have to put 2 bolts right here. So how am I going to bolt it, you know, to the frame if there's a 1/4 inch gap there? You know, that's going to either bend the frame or it's going to mess up the notch itself. I don't know, but on both sides the bottom has a 1/4 inch gap. Like I said, the top is very snug, very perfect all the way across, but the bottom has that 1/4 inch gap. I don't get it. And they say that you have to put 2 bolts on the bottom. I don't know if you can see that. There's 2 holes. So how am I going to bolt it when there's a damn gap there? I don't get it. Maybe I have to put washers in there or something. Alright, so I just got the upper control arm off. Lower control arm is still on, spring is still on, shock is still on. But now that I got the upper control arm off, I have room to go ahead and get the shock off. There's the upper mount. I've already unbolted the bottom, and then I'm using a jack to support the lower control arm. That way nothing moves around while I'm undoing these bolts. So just put the jack there, undo the bottom bolts first, and then come up here, get your wrench. There's a little part at the top where you can stick your wrench in there. You can use an adjustable like this, or you can get the right size that goes on there. And then when you hold that, then you get this wrench here. This is a 15 mil wrench. And then just go ahead and loosen it while you hold the top with that adjustable wrench. And then it should come right off. Alright, so now that I just took the shock out, I still have the jack supporting the lower control arm. I'm going to loosen the jack right now, and let's see what happens with the spring. Ooh, I can feel that pressure. The spring's trying to push that control arm all the way down. Alright, now the spring still feels like it has pressure in there. So what we can do, holy shit, what we can do to get it off, here, let me support this brake caliper real quick. Alright, so I went ahead and supported the caliper and the backing plate with that little jack. So now there's no jack under the control arm, the spring is free, So what I'm going to try to do is use one arm to hold the spring, and I'm going to use my foot to push the control arm down and see if I can free it from being in there without this thing flying at my face. Alright, it doesn't want to come out, so I'm try a different method. Alright, so what you seen there was me taking a long ass pipe and I stuck it in the coil and I kind of just binded it in there and then pushed up on the pipe, and it kind of pulled the coil out of there. And then I went ahead and stepped on the control arm with my foot and then pulled it the rest of the way out. So now the last thing that we need to remove now is just the lower control arm. Everything else is already disconnected, and then we can start bolting up the new control arms. Alright, so I went ahead and got the lower control arm on first. It's going to look like it doesn't fit when you first put it up to it. So what you got to do is use the jack and kind of put it under right here and push it into these things, because it's going to look like it doesn't line up right. So just push it up into it, take your flathead, stick it into those holes and kind of move it around to where you can get your bolt in there. Once you get your bolt at least, you know, a 1/4 inch, maybe about an inch or so, get a hammer and just start hitting it, and that'll straighten everything out. So I got the 2 bolts in. Now I just got to go and put the nuts on, and that'll be done. And then we'll put the next control arm on. Alright, so for the upper control arm, pretty much the only tips I can give are just have a rubber mallet, and then when you put it up against these mounts, just kind of hit right here, the rubber mallet, and it'll slowly kind of push it in, because it's going to be a really tight fit. And then once you get it in enough to where you can see the hole opening on the control arm, just get a flathead, stick it in there, pull it back, and that'll even push it in even more. And then get your bolt, just get the bolts in there. Also, what I did was I greased these fittings first before I put this thing in here, because once it's in there, there's really no room to get your grease gun in there. So that's what I did. I went ahead and greased them first, and then now I'm putting the spring in right now. I'm using a jack. I put the spring into the pocket, and then I made sure the thing was lined up on the notch in there. And now I'm gonna start jacking it up a little bit more, and then I'm gonna put the spindle on these 2 bolts here. The spring, this lowering spring that came from DJM, was very long. You know, it doesn't really work. So I mean, if you can get it in, you know, good for you, but I ended up cutting the spring a little bit. I took off a little bit off the spring because with the length that it was at, it just was not going in there. There was no way I could get it in, especially by myself here. So like I said, I cut the spring a little bit. So now instead of this truck having a 4.7 drop, it's gonna have a 5.7 probably. Probably took off about an inch of length, of ride height when I cut the spring. But once I cut it, it went in pretty easy. But at, you know, the stock length that it comes at, even though it's a 2-inch drop spring, it's still the same size as that stock one. And it just was not going in, you know, compared with this control arm and upper control arm. It just, I don't know, I couldn't get it in. So I ended up cutting it. So, you know, beware if you do that. You know, I don't know if the ride height's going to be good, or I mean the ride quality is going to be good. But we'll see. I even tried to get the spring in without cutting it, and what I used were these what are these called again? Spring compressors. I had 2 of them. There's not much room for them, so I ended up cutting a lot of this thread off of them to get them to fit in there. But they actually ended up breaking. Good thing they didn't break while I was tightening them, but they actually broke when I was loosening them. Probably because I was using an impact gun. Anyways, those broke, so I couldn't use those anymore. Yeah. I'd say that's probably the hardest part of this install, is getting the spring on if you don't cut it. Because that's even harder than everything else I've done. I was fighting the spring for maybe hours, and you know, I left it alone, came back to it, and just said, fuck it, I'm going to cut the stupid spring. That way I can have some more room to get it in there. And we'll see how it works. If it ends up not working out, then screw it, I'll put the stock springs back in and then see how that works. But these are the 2-inch lowering springs from DJM. Yeah, so let's see if this works. Well, the spindle went on really easy. As long as you use your jack up the control arm to where it's close enough to where the spindle can be close enough for the control arms to put their threads into it, and then just start putting the castle nuts on, and then you're good to go. Actually, I can loosen this jack now. As you see, everything's good. So one of the last steps for me to do is install the tie rod ends. The other ones had ripped boots on both sides, so I ended up getting these new ones. But before I can put these on, in the instructions from DJM, it lists right here, you will need to trim 5/8 off the tie rod ends to have enough adjustment of the toe alignment. And it says you all may also need to cut some off of the adjusting sleeves. I don't think I'm going to cut the sleeves. I'm just going to go, instead of cutting the sleeves, I'll do a little bit more than 5/8 off of the tie rod ends. So I think what I'll do, instead of doing 5/8, I'll do 3/4. Yeah, that's what I'll do. So I'll cut off 3/4 of an inch off the threads right here on both of them, and then we'll take these out and install them on the truck. I do gotta screw in these Zerk fittings real quick and then put some grease in them also, because they don't come greased. So that's how much I ended up cutting off of them, because for some reason in the instructions it says you got to trim it to be able to have enough room for your alignment. After I trimmed off those pieces, I went and took some spray paint, black spray paint, and I spray painted the bare metal that was at the tip of them, because I had cut that much off. And then also I had to use this file to clean up the threads, and then I took them out to the truck and I made sure that they threaded into the sleeves that they screw into, and they worked, mainly because I cleaned them up with this. If you don't clean it up with the file, then you might mess up your threads inside the sleeve, if you can even get it to thread in. Alright, now I can finally put them on. Well, I think I'm done. I just got the tie rod ends on, as you can see there. I did the sway bar before I did the tie rods. I don't think I recorded that though, but when you do the sway bar, do both sides at the same time or else it won't work. So that's on, tie rod's on, cotter pins are in, shock's on. I think we're ready to go. Moment of truth, we'll put the wheels on and we'll lower it down and we'll see how it looks. Oh my god. Oh. Alright, well, this was a freaking fail. That's way too goddamn low in the front. And it doesn't make any sense because I didn't cut that much off the spring. I didn't even cut a full coil. That's all I did off of both of them. It was supposed to be a 4-inch drop in the front. But like I said, I couldn't get the stupid spring in, so I cut that much off of each one. So I figured, okay, maybe it'll give me another inch, about 5 inches. But that fucking looks like fucking 8 inches in the front. I don't understand why it's so damn low. There's literally, I looked under it, there's like that much room for the suspension to travel before the control arm hits the frame. So, I mean, it's pretty much not even drivable like that. So what I'm gonna do, I don't want to because I just fucking put everything back together. There's the stock spring. I'm gonna try to put that in there and see what that looks like with these control arms. Maybe it'll be just the perfect drop that I'm looking for, because that's just too low. I don't know. we'll see. I'm gonna try to take it on a test drive and see how freaking loud it is. So I ended up finding a solution to my problem of the truck being too low. What I ended up doing was taking the 2-inch drop springs that I cut back out of the truck, and then I ended up using the stock springs and putting those back in the truck. But what I ended up doing was I cut the stock springs. I cut one coil off of them, which equals, you know, to about a 2-inch drop on the stock spring. So it ended up giving me about a 4 to 5 inch drop in the front. It's a little bit higher than it was with the other springs. The other ones just had it sitting a little bit too low. I wasn't comfortable with it, so I ended up putting stock springs on, and it brought it up about an inch, and now it's drivable. It doesn't scrape that bad at all. Only on like huge, you know, potholes or bumps in the road, but it actually rides really smooth. And pretty good. The back's actually slightly higher, which is great because this is still a work truck, and I still have days where I have to put tools in the back, you know, up to 200 to 250, maybe 300 pounds. Maybe not 300, maybe, you know, 200 pounds max of tools in the back. So being slightly higher in the back is actually going to help that. And I kind of like the way it looks. It's got like that old school muscle car look, you know, where it's a little bit higher in the back. So yeah, it ended up working out. I got a little rolling shot that I can include in this video. And yeah, that wraps this up. You know, it was a big headache putting this all together, but you know, the end result, I think it looks beautiful. So yeah, I'll end this here.